Looking for a fun way to boost your English? Quick chats, easy tips, and a whole lot of poppin' energy, all in one place. This is Podcast Popcorn. Let's pop into it and make learning fun.
Okay, let's, have you ever had that moment? You're trying to watch a film, no subtitles, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe you're just listening to native speakers talking, just, casually chatting away.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
And suddenly it hits you. You know the words individually. You probably get the grammar, mostly. But when they speed up,
oh yeah,
it all just sort of blurs together, this overwhelming rush of sound.
Like trying to catch a speeding train made of words. Exactly. You're just left standing there.
Yeah. Watching it zoom past, it's a really common feeling, right? Especially for intermediate learners.
Absolutely. It's a huge hurdle for many learners, particularly around that, say, A2 plus or B1 level. You've put in the work, you've got the basics down pat.
Right.
But then you encounter real, natural, fast speech. And it feels like a totally different language sometimes.
It really does. It can be so frustrating.
Demotivating even. You start to wonder if you'll ever crack it.
Well, that's exactly why we're here. Welcome, everyone, to The Deep Dive.
Glad to be diving in.
Our mission here is pretty straightforward. We take source material guides, articles, research, you name it, and we really dig deep. We pull out the key insights, the practical stuff.
The goal is to help you get well-informed on a topic quickly, efficiently, but also with, genuine understanding, not just a list of facts.
Exactly. And today's deep dive, we're tackling that exact feeling, understanding fast native English.
We're going to break down why it's so tough and, maybe more importantly, what the source material says you can actually do about it. We've got a great guide to work from.
We do. Our source today is some really solid excerpts from a guide called Mastering Fast English, a comprehensive guide.
I've heard good things about that one.
Yeah, it's specifically written for intermediate learners, people facing this exact challenge. The author is an English teacher, loads of experience, over a decade helping students with this.
So someone who's really been in the trenches with learners on this.
Precisely. And the guide promises practical, actionable strategies, ways to bridge that gap between textbook English and how people really talk.
Okay, so our objective today, using this guide as our map, is to unpack those challenges. First, really understand them.
Right. Knowing the why is key.
And then lay out the solutions the guide offers. Evidence-based strategies, practical activities. It's all focused on helping you train your brain, train your ears.
So you can navigate that fast flow of English with hopefully a lot more confidence and understanding. We're basically your guides exploring this material with you.
And I'm here to help synthesize, spot the patterns, and really highlight why this matters for your learning journey.
Fantastic. Let's get started then. The guide makes a really good point early on.
Oh yeah, what's that?
It says you can't really fix a problem until you understand what's causing it, right?
Makes perfect sense. Diagnose before you prescribe.
Exactly. So before jumping into solutions, it spends time explaining why listening to fast native English feels like such a struggle for non-native speakers.
And it's not just one thing, is it? It's usually a combination of factors.
Right. It's not just pure speed. It's about how natives speak naturally.
Okay, so if you don't know why you're struggling, your practice might not be hitting the right spots.
Exactly. You could be practicing the wrong things. So what's the first big reason the guide points to?
The guide starts with something fundamental. Connected speech.
Connected speech. Okay.
This is basically a core feature of how fluent English sounds. When native speakers talk, especially casually and quickly, they almost never pronounce each word completely separately, with neat little pauses in between.
Right. It's not like reading words off a list.
Not at all. What happens is the sounds at the end of one word tend to blend or link or even change slightly because of the sound starting the next word.
Ah, okay. So it's not just stringing words together faster, it's the sounds themselves morphing at the edges.
Precisely. They merge, and this blending creates sounds that can sound really, really different from what you'd expect if you just looked at the words written down individually.
I can see how that would be confusing.
Hugely confusing. If your ears aren't tuned into hearing these specific combinations and changes, it becomes incredibly hard to even tell where one word stops and the next one begins.
Or even to recognize the word you actually know, because it sounds different in the flow.
Exactly. You might hear a stream of sound where you expected, say, 3 distinct words.
It's like trying to find islands in a river, but the water's flowing so fast they all just look like one continuous bank.
That's a great way to put it. And the guide gives a classic example, one everyone's probably heard.
Okay, let's hear it.
The phrase, "What are you doing?" Spoken slowly, carefully, you hear all the parts.
What you doing? Yep.
But in normal, fast, everyday speech, it very often comes out sounding like, what you doing?
What you doing? Wow, yeah, that's a huge difference. If you only know the written form, trying to map what are you doing onto the sound what you doing in real time.
It's almost impossible if you haven't encountered it or learned to recognize it. The keet in what combines with the RU to make that chi sound, and the end of doing often gets clipped.
The G sound drops off. Do, yeah.
It's a massive shift in the sound profile. And that's the heart of the challenge with connected speech. You're not just hearing words faster, you're hearing them pronounced differently because the sounds influence each other.
It reduces the clarity massively if you're not expecting it. You hear this mush of sound instead of clear words.
Exactly. A sound string, not a word sequence.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. And the guide mentions another barrier that's closely related to this, right? Reduced forms.
Yes, very closely linked. Reduced forms are what happens when really common words, often the grammar words, like prepositions, articles, helping verbs get shortened or weakened in fast, casual speech.
So they lose their full sound.
They often lose their full vowel sound, yeah. They become unstressed and can shrink down to just a quick, indistinct syllable or even just a consonant sound sometimes.
So these aren't like mistakes, they're not mispronunciations?
Not at all. They are completely standard, predictable features of native fluency. But here's the problem. If you learned English focusing on the full, clear pronunciation of every word, the strong form, and that's what you expect to hear,
then when you hear the reduced weak form at speed,
you might just miss it entirely. Or you hear a little blip of sound that you don't connect to any word you know.
which means you're effectively missing whole words from the sentence.
And obviously that destroys comprehension. The guide gives some really common examples. Going to is almost always reduced to gonna in speech.
I'm gonna go later. Yes, gonna. Used constantly.
Or want to becomes wanna.
You wanna grab coffee? Yep, wanna. Everywhere.
And here's one the guide highlights because it often trips learners up around. The reduction is quite significant.
Should have. Should have. Okay, how does that reduce?
In fast speech, it very frequently becomes shoulda.
Shoulda. Wow, I should have known. You're right, thinking about should have written down versus the sound shoulda. That's a huge leap.
It really is. How would you guess that connection without being exposed to it or taught it? It feels like a secret code sometimes.
It totally does. Like you need a decoder ring.
The guide really emphasizes how much sound is lost or changed compared to the spelling. And these reductions, gonna, quanna, shoulda, hafta, coulda, they're used all the time in daily conversation.
So recognizing the sound of gonna and instantly knowing it means going to is a critical listening skill.
Absolutely crucial for understanding speech at its natural pace.
Okay. Connected speech, reduced forms. What's the third barrier the guide identifies? Something about the rhythm.
Yes. Barrier number 3, stress and intonation. This one's really fundamental, and it marks a big difference between English and many other languages.
How so?
English is what linguists call a stress-timed language.
Stress-timed. Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It means the rhythm isn't based on giving each syllable roughly the same amount of time, like in syllable-timed languages, say Spanish or French.
Ah, okay, so it's not like a steady beat for every syllable.
No. Instead, the rhythm of English is built around the stressed syllables in a sentence. The unstressed syllables often get squeezed or rushed to fit in the time between the main beats, the stressed syllables.
So the important bits get the emphasis and the little grammar words get squashed.
That's a great way to think about it. The core meaning, the main message, is carried heavily by those stressed syllables. And where do we usually find stress?
On the important words, right? Like nouns, main verbs, adjectives.
Exactly, the content words. The function words we just talked about, the articles, prepositions, auxiliary verbs, they're usually unstressed. They get reduced, linked, and become less prominent in the sound stream.
And intonation plays a part here too, the melody of the sentence.
A huge part. Intonation, the rise and fall of your voice pitch, carries so much meaning in English. Is it a question? Are you surprised? Sarcastic. Finished speaking. Still got more to say. All that is signaled by the tune.
Okay, I see the problem now. If you're already struggling at high speed to just identify the words because of connected speech and reductions,
right,
then trying to also figure out which words are stressed, what the main rhythm is, A and D, interpret the meaning from the intonation.
It's a massive cognitive load. Your brain is juggling way too many tasks simultaneously while the information is just rushing in. It's a completely different processing challenge compared to languages where stress is maybe more predictable or less critical for meaning.
Wow, okay, that's a big one. Barrier 4, slang and idioms. This feels maybe more straightforward, just not knowing the vocabulary?
Well, yes and no. It is about vocabulary, but the guide frames it as a specific listening challenge too, and for a good reason.
Okay, why is it more than just a vocab gap?
Because casual, fast native speech is absolutely packed with expressions, idioms, phrasal verbs, slang, where the meaning has nothing to do with the literal meaning of the individual words.
Right. So knowing each word separately doesn't help you understand the phrase.
Not one bit. You could know spill, the, and tea perfectly, but if you don't know that spill the tea as a chunk means share gossip.
You're completely lost. You're picturing someone being clumsy with a drink.
Exactly. Or the classic kick the bucket.
Which literally sounds like attacking a pail.
But means to die. The meaning is totally opaque from the words themselves. So even if you manage to hear the words clearly at speed, which is a big if with connected speech,
Right.
the lack of cultural context or prior exposure to that specific phrase as a single unit of meaning creates an instant roadblock. You can't logic it out. You just have to know it.
It's like needing a separate dictionary just for these phrases, a whole extra layer of language knowledge.
Oh, it really is. And they pop up so fast in conversation.
Okay. And the final barrier, number 5, probably the most obvious one.
Yep, the rapid pace itself.
They just talk fast.
They do. The guide puts the average pace for native conversation somewhere between 120 and 150 words per minute, sometimes even faster.
150 words a minute. That's more than 2 words a second.
It is. And while all the other things we discussed, the blending, the reductions, the stress patterns, make that speed feel even more intense.
The sheer speed alone is a huge factor.
Definitely, because it leaves your non-native brain with very little time to actually process everything.
What do you mean by process?
Think about everything your brain is trying to do. Hear the sounds, segment them into words, fighting through the connected speech, identify those words, even the reduced ones, access the meaning from your mental dictionary, figure out the grammar, track the stress and intonation, and assemble the overall meaning of the sentence.
All in the fraction of a second before the next few words arrive.
Exactly. Doing that 120, 150 times a minute, there's just no time. You feel like you're constantly behind, trying to catch up. That's where that overwhelmed, drowning in words feeling comes from.
The fire hose effect.
Precisely. The guide does a great job showing it's this combination of speed plus the specific linguistic features of natural speech that creates such a perfect storm for learners.
Okay. So, understanding these 5 things, connected speech, reduced forms, stress intonation, slang idioms, and pace, that's the first crucial step. It tells you what you're up against.
And empowers you, hopefully. Because now you know what you need to train your ear and brain to handle. It's not just some vague listening skill.
Right. It's specific phenomena. And that leads us directly to the next part of the guide, right? The solutions.
Exactly. Once you understand the why, the guide lays out the how. It offers 5 professional, evidence-based strategies designed specifically to target these challenges.
5 strategies. Okay, this is the actionable part. I'm ready. What's strategy number 1?
Strategy 1, immerse yourself in authentic audio.
Immersion. Okay, we hear that term a lot in language learning. Yeah. How does the guide define it for this specific challenge?
It really emphasizes authentic audio, meaning real, unscripted, natural English conversations, not simplified stuff made just for learners, although that has its place early on.
Why authentic?
Because that's where you'll actually encounter all the features we just talked about, the connected speech, the reductions, the real rhythm, the slang happening naturally at speed. You need exposure to the real thing.
So the goal isn't just passive listening. It's actively exposing your ears to how fast English actually sounds.
Exactly. The guide mentions research showing that consistent, focused exposure actually helps, kind of, retune your brain's auditory processing over time. Your ears get better at picking out the patterns, segmenting the sounds.
Where does the guide suggest finding this authentic audio?
Lots of places. Podcasts are fantastic, especially interview or conversational ones. YouTube vlogs, where people are just chatting naturally. Reality TV shows, interviews, even certain scripted shows known for realistic dialogue.
Like Friends or maybe The Great British Bake Off.
Yes, those are the examples given. The key, the guide stresses, is finding content you actually enjoy, something you find interesting.
Because then it doesn't feel like homework.
Precisely. You'll be more motivated to stick with it. If you like cooking, find cooking vlogs. If you like tech, find tech podcasts.
Makes sense. Does the guide suggest a specific activity for this immersion?
Yes, a very practical step-by-step routine. First, pick a short clip, maybe just 3 minutes to start. They suggest something like BBC's The English We Speak podcast. It's authentic, but often focused, which is a good starting point.
Okay, 3 minutes. Then what?
Listen once, without any subtitles or transcript. Just try to get the gist. Maybe note down a few words you caught. Don't stress about understanding everything.
Okay, first pass, no aids.
Then, listen again, same clip, but with the subtitles or transcript. Now you can see what you missed. Connect the sounds you heard to the words on the page.
So you identify the gaps.
Exactly. And here's a crucial bit. Repeat this listen without, then listen with process several times with the same short clip. Really internalize it.
So deep dive into a short segment rather than shallow listening to lots of different things.
Yes, that repetition helps cement the patterns. Then the idea is to do this daily with new clips, maybe gradually making them a bit longer as you get more comfortable.
Got it. And is there a pro tip for this strategy?
Yes. Use apps like Audible or Spotify for easy access to podcasts and audiobooks. And the big one, aim for consistency. Try to get in at least 15 minutes of this kind of focused, authentic listening every day.
15 minutes. That sounds doable. Why daily, though? Is it better than one long session on the weekend?
The guide suggests it's like training a muscle. Short, regular workouts are generally more effective for building this kind of auditory skill than one long, infrequent session. You're gradually adjusting your brain's filters. Daily practice keeps that process active and reinforces the patterns. It builds the habit.
Consistency over intensity. Okay. Strategy 2 directly tackles one of the big barriers, decoding connected speech.
Right. Since connected speech is such a major hurdle, the guide dedicates a whole strategy to cracking it. It's about learning to recognize those blended, linked, changed sounds so you can parse the sound stream back into words you know.
Moving from hearing noise to hearing words.
Exactly. And how do you do it? The guide says study the common patterns, yes, but crucially, practice mimicking them yourself.
Mimicking, so trying to say them the same way.
Yes. The idea is that physically producing the sounds actually trains your ear to hear them better when others say them. It connects the motor action of speaking with the auditory perception.
That's really interesting. Your mouth helps your ears. What are the key connected speech patterns the guide focuses on?
It breaks them down into 3 main types to listen for and practice. First is linking. This is when the last sound of one word flows smoothly into the first sound of the next, like consonant to vowel linking or vowel to vowel linking. The example given is look at it.
Look at it. How does that link?
It often sounds like one smooth word. Look at it.
Look it. Yeah, the K links to the A, the T links to the I, the word boundaries vanish.
Exactly. Second type, reductions. We talked about these as a challenge. Here, the strategy is learning to recognize the sound. So, hearing gonna and instantly knowing it's going to, hearing hafta.
Hafta means have to, right? Actively training your ear for those specific shrunken sounds.
Yes. And third, contractions. Things like I'm, they, can't. While you learn these early, the guide points out that hearing them rapidly, often combined with linking and reductions, still requires practice. Your ear needs to instantly equate the short sound with the full form.
Okay, linking, reductions, contractions. What's the activity for practicing decoding these tricky bits?
The guide suggests this exercise. 1, watch a short video, maybe a TED Talk clip, something engaging with natural speech. 2, pause it after each sentence or short phrase. 3, your job is to pinpoint one example of connected speech in that bit. Did you hear linking? A reduction like gonna. A contraction.
Just identify one instance.
Yes. Then repeat that sentence out loud, trying to copy the speaker exactly, paying special attention to reproducing that connected speech feature you identified.
So you're mimicking the specific sound pattern.
Exactly. And for extra points, record yourself saying it and compare it to the original speaker. That really highlights where you might need to adjust your pronunciation to match the natural flow.
That sounds intense but effective, forces you to listen really closely. What's the pro tip here?
The guide highly recommends a technique called shadowing.
Shadowing. What's that?
It's where you listen to the audio and repeat what the speaker is saying, almost simultaneously, just a split second behind them like an echo.
Wow, okay. So you're listening and speaking at pretty much the same time.
Yes. The guide says this simultaneous processing, taking in the sound while immediately trying to reproduce it, is incredibly powerful. It helps embed the natural sounds, rhythms, and flow of English into both your listening comprehension and your own speaking fluency.
Builds that ear-mouth connection very directly. Okay, interesting. Strategy 3 connects back to the rhythm thing. Focus on stressed words.
Right. Revisiting that idea that English is stress-timed, the main meaning usually lands on the stressed syllables and the content words, nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs. The little function words often get unstressed and sort of fade into the background.
So this strategy is about training your ear to zoom in on those stressed words?
Exactly. The idea is, even if you miss some of the unstressed, reduced, linked words in between, if you can reliably catch the stressed words, you can often get the main idea of the sentence. It's about listening efficiently.
Filtering for the important information carriers.
Precisely. The guide uses this example sentence. I'm going to buy a new car tomorrow.
I'm going to buy a new car tomorrow. Okay, applying the strategy, which words carry the stress there?
According to typical English stress patterns, the stressed words would likely be gonna buy new car and tomorrow.
Gonna buy a new car tomorrow. Huh, you're right. Just hearing those stressed words tells you the core message. Plan, purchase, vehicle, future time.
Exactly. And the unstressed words, I'm and a. If you only heard I'm a, you'd have no idea what was being said. The guide really shows how much meaning is packed into those stress points.
So learning to reliably identify them is a key skill for cutting through the noise of fast speech.
A very powerful skill. How do you practice it? The guide suggests this activity. 1, find a short audio clip, maybe 1 minute long. News reports can be good for this. 2, listen specifically to identify and write down only the words you hear as stressed. Don't worry about the unstressed one.
Just the loud words.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Then, step 3. Look only at your list of stressed words and try to guess the main topic or meaning of the clip just from that skeleton sentence.
Okay, see how much you can reconstruct.
Exactly. Finally, listen again, maybe with a transcript this time, to check how accurate you were both in identifying the stressed words and in grasping the meaning.
That's a really focused way to train your ear for rhythm and prominence. What's the pro tip for focusing on stress?
Start slow if you need to. The guide points out that many audio players or apps let you slow down the playback speed, like 0.75x.
Ah, use the slowdown feature.
Yeah. Practice identifying stressed words at a slightly slower, more manageable pace first. Build your confidence and sensitivity to the rhythm there, then gradually increase the speed back towards normal.
Build the skill, then add the speed challenge. Logical. Makes it less intimidating.
Exactly.
Okay, strategy 4. Expand your vocabulary and cultural knowledge. Now, this feels a bit different from the pure listening mechanics. How does knowing more words help with fast speech specifically?
Because even if your ear becomes amazing at decoding sounds and rhythms, you'll still hit a wall if you simply don't know the words. Or, crucially, the common phrases being used. Vocabulary is the bedrock.
Right, you need the building blocks.
And at native speed, there's no time to stop and think, what does that word mean? You need instant recognition. Plus, as we discussed with Barrier 4, casual speech is full of idioms and slang. These require cultural knowledge because their meaning isn't literal.
So it's about building both general vocabulary and specific knowledge of those non-literal expressions common in conversation.
Precisely. The guide suggests a manageable goal. Learn maybe 5 to 10 new items, words, phrasal verbs, idioms each week. The key is to focus on vocabulary that's common in spoken, informal English, the kind you'll actually hear in those authentic audio clips.
And how does the guide suggest making sure these new words actually stick?
Good old-fashioned techniques that work. Using flashcards, or even better, using spaced repetition software apps like Anki. These apps schedule reviews automatically so you see the word just before you're likely to forget it.
Spaced repetition keeps it fresh in your memory.
Exactly. Consistent review is key. The guide also gives a few more common idiom examples learners should probably know. We had spill the tea and kick the bucket.
What else?
Things like break the ice.
Meaning start a conversation, make people feel comfortable.
Yep, especially in a new group.
Yeah.
Or let the cat out of the bag.
Reveal a secret, usually by accident. Oops.
Exactly. And bite the bullet.
Face something difficult or unpleasant with courage. Just gotta bite the bullet and do it.
Right. These are all phrases where the literal meaning is useless. The guide stresses learning them as single chunks, like one vocabulary item.
Okay, so how do we practice integrating these new terms? What's the activity?
The guide suggests using sitcoms. 1. Watch an episode of something like Brooklyn Flora. 9 sitcoms are great for natural dialogue, slang, and idioms. 2. Have a notebook handy and jot down maybe 3 new slang terms or idioms you hear and don't know.
Okay, capture them in the wild.
Yes. Then look up the meanings, and here's the active part. Write your own sentence using each of those 3 new terms.
Applying it immediately.
Exactly. It helps solidify the meaning and usage. And the guide adds a nice touch. Try sharing your sentences maybe with a language exchange partner or on an online forum to get feedback and check if you're using them naturally.
Getting that feedback loop is smart, ensures you're learning correctly. What's the pro tip for building this vocab and cultural knowledge?
Follow native English speakers on social media, especially platforms like X, formerly Twitter.
Yeah.
Influencers, comedians, journalists, whoever interests you.
Why social media?
Because you see language being used spontaneously, in real time, often reacting to current events. You get exposure to modern slang, new idioms, and how language evolves, all used naturally in context.
It's like a live, constantly updated textbook of casual English.
Exactly. A fantastic free resource for keeping your finger on the pulse of the language.
Clever. Okay, final strategy, number 5. Practice active listening techniques. What's the difference between just listening and active listening here?
The guide draws a really important line. Passive listening is like having music on in the background. The sound goes in, but your brain isn't really, working hard with it.
It's just noise washing over you.
Right. Active listening, however, is conscious and focused. It's making a deliberate effort to understand, analyze, and remember what you're hearing. You're listening with a goal.
So it's about engaging your brain fully.
Totally. The guide says active listening dramatically improves both your immediate comprehension and your ability to recall the information later. It turns listening into a workout for your brain, and it introduces a specific method. Listen, pause, reflect.
Listen, pause, reflect. Okay, break that down for me.
It's a simple, structured cycle. Listen, play a short audio segment. The guide suggests keeping it fairly short, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, so you don't get overwhelmed. Pause. Stop the audio. Now comes the active part. Immediately try to summarize in your own words the main idea or the key points you just heard. This forces your brain to process and consolidate.
Yeah, to make sense of it right away.
Exactly. Then reflect. Think about what you understood easily and what was confusing. What did you miss? Why did you miss it? Was it a word you didn't know? A sound blend you didn't catch? Look things up if you need to. Re-listen to tricky bits.
That reflect step seems crucial. It's where the learning happens, figuring out the why.
It really is. It makes the process explicit. You're diagnosing your own listening challenges and reinforcing what you did get right. The guide suggests a specific activity using this method.
What kind of activity?
Using a news clip, maybe from BBC or CNN online. 1. Choose a clip about 2 minutes. News is good because it's usually information-dense and structured. 2. Listen to the segment, the listen step. 3. Pause it. Now, for the reflect part, try answering specific questions based only on what you heard. What was the main topic? Who are the key people involved? What happened?
Testing your actual comprehension of the details.
Right. Then listen again, maybe with subtitles this time, to check your answers and catch what you missed. Note down new vocabulary. 4. Finally, try to summarize the entire 2-minute clip in just 3 concise sentences. Forces you to synthesize the main points.
That's a solid workout. And the pro tip for active listening?
Keep a listening journal.
A journal, like a diary for listening.
Kind of. Log what you listen to, e.g. podcast EP5 first 3 months. Note down new words or phrases you learned. But most importantly, write down your reflections. What was easy? What was hard? Did you notice improvement in catching reductions this week?
So you track your progress over time.
Exactly. Seeing that progress written down, wow, I understood much more of this type of clip than last month, can be incredibly motivating. It makes the invisible improvement visible.
That's really smart. Provides concrete evidence you're getting better.
And helps you see where to keep focusing your efforts.
Okay, so those are the 5 big strategies. Immerse in authentic audio, decode connected speech, focus on stressed words, expand vocab and culture, and practice active listening. That's a fantastic toolkit.
It really is. But the guide recognizes that just having a list of tools isn't enough. You need a plan to actually use them, right?
Yeah, definitely. It can feel overwhelming knowing where to start.
So the guide provides a really simple, structured plan to integrate these strategies into a regular routine. It's designed as a 5-day rotating plan, needing only about 15-20 minutes each day.
15-20 minutes a day, focusing on one thing. That sounds very manageable. How does the plan break down?
It cycles through the key strategies, giving each one focus. Day 1. Focus is immersion, strategy 1. Do that simple activity. Listen to a short, authentic clip, 3 minutes. Note down 5 words you understood. Just getting comfortable with the sound.
Okay, gentle start.
Day 2. Focus on connected speech, strategy 2. This is your shadowing practice day. Pick a short video, repeat after the speaker, mimic those blends and links. Maybe record yourself.
Active practice day.
Day 3. Focus on stressed words. Strategy 3. Do the 1-minute clip activity. Listen. Write down only the stressed words. Guess the meaning from that skeleton.
Training the ear for rhythm.
Day 4. Focus on vocabulary culture. Strategy 4. Watch that sitcom clip, find 3 new idioms or slang terms, look them up, and write your own sentences using them.
Building the knowledge base.
Day 5. Focus on active listening. Strategy 5. Use the news clip activity. Listen, pause, answer comprehension questions, or write that 3-sentence summary. Practice the listen, pause, reflect method.
Putting it all together to check understanding. That's really neat. It covers all the bases across the week without being overwhelming on any single day. And then you just repeat the cycle.
Exactly. And the guide adds one more crucial step. Reflection at the end of the week or the 5-day cycle.
Circling back to the journal idea.
Yeah. Take 5 minutes. Write a short paragraph. What felt easier this week? Did you notice a specific pattern you didn't before? What's still feeling tricky?
And why is that reflection so important?
Because it helps you see your own progress, which is motivating. And it helps you identify maybe where you need to focus a bit more next week. It makes your practice smarter and more tailored to your needs. You're actively guiding your own learning.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, we've got the challenges, the strategies, a plan. But let's be real, this stuff is hard. People are going to hit roadblocks. Does the guide talk about common problems?
It absolutely does. It's very realistic about the journey and addresses common pitfalls learners encounter, offering ways to navigate them.
Good. What's the first pitfall? I bet I can guess. Frustration. Feeling like you're not making progress.
Bingo. Frustration is huge. Because progress isn't always a straight line upright, especially with listening. You have good days, bad days, you hit plateaus. It's easy to get discouraged and think, this isn't working.
So what's the guide's advice for dealing with that inevitable frustration?
2 key things. Set realistic expectations. You won't understand everything overnight. And crucially, learn to celebrate the small wins.
Small wins, like what?
Did you catch an idiom you learned last week? Did you finally hear gonna clearly instead of just noise? Did you understand the main point of a podcast segment, even if you miss details? Notice and acknowledge those moments. Focus on the progress you are making, however small, instead of just staring at the mountain still left to climb.
Shift your focus from the gap to the steps you've taken. I like that. Okay, another common problem.
Time constraints. Life is busy. Finding even 15-20 minutes a day can feel hard.
Yeah, that's a reality for almost everyone. What's the solution? Clone ourselves.
If only. No, the guide suggests being smart about integrating practice into your existing routine. Remember, the 15-20 minute goal, that's not a huge block. Can you listen while commuting, while exercising, washing dishes?
Use those dead time moments.
Exactly. The guide specifically mentions using commutes. Short, consistent bursts woven into your day add up significantly. Don't wait for the perfect quiet hour that might never come. Use the pockets of time you have.
Be opportunistic with your listening. Makes sense. Pitfall number 3.
Lack of resources. Sometimes people feel they need expensive courses or special materials, and if they can't afford them, they feel stuck.
Right. The I don't have the right book cap feeling.
And the guide's counter to that is simple. The internet is overflowing with amazing free resources. YouTube, podcasts, BBC Learning English, news websites, social media, all the things we've mentioned. You absolutely do not need to spend a lot of money to get high-quality, authentic listening practice.
That's really empowering. The tools are already out there, accessible to pretty much everyone.
Good point.
Final pitfall.
This is a big psychological one. Fear of mistakes.
Yes. Worrying about not understanding, feeling stupid, being embarrassed.
Exactly. It's paralyzing for some learners. They worry so much about getting it wrong that they avoid situations where they might misunderstand.
So how does the guide address this fear?
By normalizing mistakes. It stresses really clearly that misunderstanding, not catching words, getting confused, it's not failure. It is a 100% natural, unavoidable, and actually necessary part of learning any complex skill, especially language listening.
So the solution is just accept you'll make mistakes.
Embrace it. See mistakes not as errors, but as information. Every time you misunderstand something and then figure out why, maybe using that reflect step, you've learned something valuable. The focus should be on the process, on the practice, on engaging with the language, not on achieving perfection right now.
Change your relationship with errors. See them as learning opportunities, not failures.
Exactly. That mindset shift is huge for reducing anxiety and staying motivated.
It really is. Okay, so bringing this whole deep dive together, The guide seems to offer a really clear path. What's the ultimate core message?
I think the core message is one of agency and potential. Mastering fast English listening isn't some magical talent you either have or you don't. It is fundamentally a skill. And like any skill, it can be developed systematically through targeted, consistent practice.
It's learnable. You can actively get better at it if you use the right approach.
Absolutely. The guide is basically saying, commit to the practice, even small amounts daily. Stay curious. Be an active listener. Trust the process. If you consistently apply these strategies, immersion, decoding, stress, focus, vocab building, active listening, you will see improvement. Your brain will adapt.
And thinking beyond just understanding more words, how does this consistent practice change the actual experience of listening?
That's a great question. It fundamentally changes how English feels. It stops feeling like that overwhelming, chaotic wall of sound. It starts to feel more navigable. You start picking out familiar landmarks. The stressed words become anchors. You recognize the common reductions. Idioms become familiar friends instead of weird puzzles.
So it reduces the anxiety.
Massively. You gain confidence with each small success. It starts to feel less like a chore or a test and more like just listening. You become more comfortable just being in the flow of the language, even if you don't catch every single nuance yet.
It sounds like it opens the door wider, makes English feel less like a barrier and more like something you can genuinely connect with.
Exactly. It unlocks all that content, the movies, the music, the podcasts, the real conversations that felt inaccessible before. It's about connection.
That's a really inspiring way to look at it, a journey with a clear map.
Provided by this guide, yeah. Lays it out very practically.
Okay, what a deep dive that was into mastering fast English. We really unpacked why it's so challenging, that tricky connected speech, those sneaky reduced forms, the whole rhythm of stress and intonation, the mystery of slang and idioms, and just the sheer speed itself.
Understanding those barriers is key. And then we explored the guide's 5 really practical strategies to fight back. Immersing yourself in real, authentic audio, actively decoding those sound changes, learning to zero in on the stressed words for meaning, building your vocabulary and cultural know-how, and using active listening techniques like listen, pause, reflect.
Plus, we looked at that simple 5-day practice plan, just 15-20 minutes a day, rotating through the strategies, and the importance of reflecting on your progress.
And finally, tackling those common pitfalls head-on. Managing frustration by celebrating small wins, finding time by using small pockets effectively, realizing you have tons of free resources, and crucially, overcoming that fear of mistakes by embracing them as part of learning.
The big takeaway really seems to be, this is a skill you can build. It takes consistent effort, but the path is clear.
Definitely. With the right focus and practice, you can absolutely improve your ability to understand fast, natural English.
So, building on everything we've discussed from the guide, here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. We talked a lot about stress and rhythm being key. What if you really leaned into strategy 3? How might consciously trying to listen only for the stressed words change your fundamental perception of English? Forget trying to catch everything, just aim for the strong words. How much of the core meaning do you think you could actually grasp just from that?
It's a fascinating experiment to try. Grab a short audio clip, maybe news or a podcast, listen once, maybe twice. Write down only the words that jump out at you, the ones that feel stressed. Then look at that list. What story does it tell you? You might be surprised how much you can get.
Give it a shot. See how it feels. It could really shift your listening approach. You've been listening to a deep dive from Podcast Popcorn.
And if you found this exploration helpful or maybe just interesting, please do take a second to hit that like button. It genuinely helps other learners find this.
Yeah, and if you know someone else wrestling with fast English, share this deep dive with them. Let's spread these insights.
And of course, please subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss our future deep dives and all sorts of other fascinating source material.
We really want to hear from you too. Scroll down and write in the comments, what title or topic should we tackle in our next deep dive? What are you curious about understanding better?
Your suggestions really help shape the show. Thanks so much for joining us today as we explored how to master fast English.
We appreciate you tuning in. Until next